The Delaware Center for Inland Bays is one of 3 shellfish growers in the state. The nonprofit leased an acre from the state in the Rehoboth Bay.
We have a plan to restore the wild populations of oysters to the inland bays.
But unlike the other 2 shellfish farmers in Delaware, the center is not growing oysters for food or profit. Executive Director Chris Basin says the nonprofit is getting in the shellfish game because of all of the environmental good oysters can do.
The environmental benefits of this are huge in terms of the filtration, the removal of the nutrients, and providing habitat for the creatures that live in the bay.
Known as filter feeders, oysters strain up to 50 gallons of water a day, eating the excess nutrients that produce a lot of algae that can pollute the bay.
Oysters, they are a natural component of the bays that have disappeared. So now there'll be sites for all these fish and invertebrates to congregate around. They'll attract large adult fish, so we expect the fishing to be good around these lease areas. And that's what we've seen in other areas on the East Coast when shellfish farming comes in, is that the benefits are tremendous.
Those benefits are why the center aggressively pushed for shellfish aquaculture in Delaware in 2011.
We were the driving force in developing the legislation and bringing the stakeholders together to figure out how do we do shellfish farming right for Delaware, right for Sussex County.
Do it right because things went terribly wrong the first time Delaware allowed shellfish farming. Division of Fish and Wildlife Director David Savakis recalls the state had a lucrative shellfish farming program in the inland bays in the 1950s and 60s.
There was exclusive leases that watermen at the time could lease areas of the bay, hundreds of acres, and they were allowed to use power dredging equipment to dredge up the oysters.
But things went south after various oyster diseases decimated the oyster population. Without any oysters to harvest, some watermen abused the system and started digging up native hard clams for profit instead.
That power equipment was not available to commercial watermen outside the leased areas, and it created an unfair playing field for other watermen on the area.
Because of that controversy, the General Assembly scrapped the program altogether back in 1979, even though it was a proven moneymaker. Currently, the East Coast shellfish industry is valued at over $150 million per year. So when then Governor Jack Markell signed the bill into law 5 years ago, Savakis says his department took its time to develop strict rules and regulations this time around.
This is not a speculative initiative. This is a business, and it's an aquaculture industry. So there were standards set in the regulations as to who could participate in the program, the type of gear that is allowable based on the different type of shellfish. So there was a lot of detail in the regulations that added guidance and certainty to the shellfish farmers, but it also provided structure to the program.
The program is funded with tax dollars and annual fees paid by the farmers themselves. Fish and wildlife environmental scientist Zena Hentz oversees it.
Oyster aquaculture is permitted in Rehoboth and Indian River Bays, and clam aquaculture is permitted in the Little Assawoman Bay.
In all, 126 acres will be leased in the inland bays and 43 acres in Little Assawoman Bay.
They have to plant at least 100,000 shellfish per acre per year after 2 years of the lease being executed, and then there's a harvest minimum as well that kicks in 3 years. Again, allowing some time for them to get shellfish planted and for those shellfish to grow.
This is huge for the bays, and it's that sweet spot where you have an industry that is truly good for the environment.